how familiar are you with the story and the family of Morad Tabaz?
Yeah, so Nazanin, very good friends with Murad's wife. When they were in Iran together, she was on house arrest, so she could speak to Vida. And obviously, there's a solidarity you have as someone going through the similar thing that even on the outside as family members, you don't quite understand. So we've been following closely. It is... I mean, goodness me, it's 18 months since we came home. That's a long time to have to wait when you thought you were going to be on the plane before, And with all of those who are coming home, they've all been left behind before. So there's a lot of trauma there around, why didn't we make it out this time? There are Americans that have been left behind this time, which of course creates the new trauma. So these are not easy times for those who come home. They're not easy times for those who get left behind. But yeah, it's for the families who were on that plane, and we haven't had confirmation they've landed yet. But it's a great moment.
I'm sure it is. Do you know what was the understanding of why Morad wasn't released along with your wife the last time around? Was there any reason given?
So different reasons probably to different people, if we're being candid.
Yes.
I think in simple terms, the way the Iranians looked at Morad was that he was part owned by the British and part owned by the Americans. So they wanted something off both. Under Dominic Raab, there had been an attempt to do a joint deal. The Americans didn't go forwards with it. The Brits did in the end under Liz Truss. And so the deal that's happened today, actually, or yesterday, 2 years in the making. That's a long time that's been there. So I think that was why it didn't happen. And actually, when they didn't come out with us, all sorts of terrible things happened to that family by the Iranians as a way of trying to pressure the Americans to move. Hostage diplomacy is a rough business, and some horrible stuff happens.
But like what?
Well, physical oppression, but also lots of mental games, lots of sort of putting people in horrible situations and making that conspicuous so that they will then go to their government and say, look, what's happening to us? And squeezing the family in different ways, squeezing the prisoner in particular, as a way of sweating your asset, really.
Yes. This idea then of a kind of quid pro quo, you give me this and we'll give you that. America unfreezes £5 billion of Iran's assets and 5 American prisoners are freed. Are there any rules on this? Are there no rules? Have things changed? Obviously, it's different when you have skin in the game. When one of these people, one of these living, breathing humans is your relative. But the kind of the feeling for a long time was always don't give in, don't pay any kind of ransom.
Yeah, there's a no concessions policy, as they say, and you're right. Of course, it feels very different when it's your loved one that's being held. The no concessions policy is around terrorists and criminals. It's different with governments because with terrorists and criminals, you can isolate them. You don't carry on engaging with them. Well, if it's a government, they've got an embassy in Kensington. We're busy doing trade deals. There's all sorts of things. So actually, it's a different dynamic. Government has an obligation to protect its citizens.
But you don't want to appear soft.
You don't want to appear soft. But probably also you don't want... the reality would be, and you're absolutely right, that over the course of the last 10 years, we've seen Iran's hostage diplomacy increase. We've seen it increase in scale, we've seen it increase in the kinds of people that are taken, and we've seen it increase in terms of the severity. And actually this calendar year, we've seen foreign citizens being executed. It's shifted into execution diplomacy, which of course does concentrate minds in capitals if you could actually lose a citizen. So that's partly the context why we've got where we've got to. I don't think we should think of it transactionally so much as the whole system and all these deals that are done create moral hazards. And if there's no deterrent, and we were talking about it as families last night, if there's no counterbalance, like you have an obligation to bring people home, you can't just wait and let them die. That said, every time you do bring people home, someone in Tehran will be patting themselves on the back and thinking, well, okay, this works, and someone will be getting promoted. And the other thing to say, which is kind of the opposite, is if the only way hostage takers can get access to their money is by taking hostages, don't be surprised that that's what they do, because that's what they know how to do. And one of the fights I used to have with the British government is, well, listen, you're blocking all avenues for them to get this money. Well, that's all very well and pious, but it lands on our shoulders. This is your fight, your problem. You don't put us in the middle of it.
You said earlier that it's been that you went through a similar thing 18 months ago. So you've had your wife back for 18 months, and your daughter Gabriella has had her mum back for 18 months. How is Gabriella finding it, and how do you find it? Does there come a point, a kind of a calendar point at which you think, okay, this is all fine now, this is how it's going to be forever, or do you still have that insecurity?
So it's different, isn't it? Gabriella, I mean, she's now 9, so she's getting bigger, and more opinionated as we all do as we get bigger, correcting our parents. But much more relaxed, oddly. Like kind of there's that being normal again, and having your mum and your dad, and your mum picking you up from the school gates, and when we're little, we all want to fit in and be like our mates. So I think that kind of campaigning world having slipped away, very healthy for her, very healthy for us as a family. And yeah, I think different for me and Nazanin. So for Nazanin, it takes a long time to feel safe again. All that happens leaves you with all sorts of trauma and nightmares and everything else. And those don't go away. You get good days, you get good weeks, and then it comes back, and it probably gradually ebbs and flows. And for me, yeah, I'd end up incredibly tunnel visioned and just focusing on one issue and battling to get Nazanin home. And so, of course, the rest of life got put on hold. And all the leaky taps of life you have to sort of start to engage with. And it takes time to be able to also, having been. So it's I'd say that there's a moment where you're a happy ending, and that's lovely and euphoric. Then you have to confront the rest of life. And you almost have to learn to be happy again and to be normal again, and to deal with everything.
And to look after yourself as well, because, there were times during that period where, obviously you were going through hunger strikes and stuff like that, where you didn't look in the best of health.
Thank you for saying
and
so.
And today you do. Are you able to actually physically, you don't feel selfish in kind of trying to look after your own health as well, because you need the whole family to be strong and fit and healthy?
I think that there's a. I mean, it's probably for the wider family that one thing monopolised all of life, and things like going to the dentist or running or going to the gym, all of these just feel a bit peripheral.
Sure.
And that's true for us all in different points in life. And so learning part of it is actually to I've got a bit fat, drinking, all those things that we all do at points, and you get that reality check of, and it would our story, like our family story, obviously monopolised all the oxygen for the wider family. Yeah. There are lots of issues that all the families need. So that kind of, it's not selfish so much as noticing the rest of life and catching up. And I mean, it's a healthy thing, but it takes time.